Is the weather or the temperature underneath Mike McDaniel warmer today?
Well, that game, they were well coached last night. That's an outman team with, I think, a historically bad defense, and I don't believe that coaching is the reason that they lost that game. They've got a fundamental architectural problem here, Dan, in that I believe that's the best game the Dolphins can play, and they're doing it by throwing the ball as many times behind the line of scrimmage as they are past the line of scrimmage. Now, that whole game last night, the average air yards in that game for Josh Allen and Tua, 1.4 yards, 1.4 yards on completion. So a lot of the league is doing that. But when I say they have a structural problem, Dan, here's the structural problem. Because they're no longer what they were, which was the best offense in the league. They're constipated on offense, and Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill don't look like they can give you much. But Josh Allen against the Dolphins is, in the regular season, 13-2, 8-0 at home. He's got 45 total touchdowns and 8 interceptions against the Dolphins. On the other side, the Dolphins have now lost 4 of their last 17 and 8 in a row against winning teams. And here's the structural flaw. And Tua's cap hit the next 4 years is more than Josh Allen's cap hit in Buffalo. And that's obviously an issue that's not going to go away for a while.
I just don't understand why they jumped the gun on Tua with his performance, his injury history, and they could have kept him another year. They could have franchised him. I'm just trying to understand from the front office, from ownership, where they go, nope, we got to sign this guy up now. Why?
They're wildly mismanaged. They've got a GM who's got the longest tenure in the league without winning a playoff game. They have not enough good players, and they got fooled by scoring 70 points against the Broncos and having a comeback against the Ravens, which a lot of people do late in games. The Ravens have blown 17 second-half leads, and they got enamored with – they had the best offense in the league, and more than that, Dan, and this part matters – they had exciting offense. They were the fastest team in the league, but now you look up and they're accused of being soft and not physical enough. And the 3 guys that they have on offense that you need things from, Waddle, Hill, and Tua, all physically undersized. Like, yeah, they were fast and speed burns, but speed also ages. And their offense is, you know, it's a bit like a Ferrari in that if a spark plug is off, it doesn't run right. There's not a lot of margin for error. I think one of the stats last night, they had a drive that had multiple successful attempts on 3rd and 10, and it's the first time they've had that since 2022. Like they used to be a big play offense, but now what they had to do in that game last night is do a perfect 16-play drive that converts a bunch of 3rd downs and just keep Josh Allen off the field for a while, because we can't do this anymore, where what we used to do is we'll have a scoring drive that goes 1, 2, or 3 plays, not 16.
How safe is Mike McDaniel?
Safer today than he was before the game, right? Because I really thought that whole game, Dan, was going to go the way the first half did, which is just keep handing the ball to James Cook and he's going to get 9 yards every time. And they didn't stop him in the first half. And the most stunning thing for me to happen to this season for the Dolphins is that they stopped the Bills at all in the second half. Like, I don't know, the Bills still scored 31 points, but the fact that the Bills were punting in the second half, I've seen no evidence from this team that it can stop anybody, Dan. I really do believe that the defense is historically bad.
Talking to Dan Le Batard, and host of Meadowlark Media's The Dan Le Batard Show that follows this on Peacock. When you're quirky and you win, we're fine with that. When you're quirky and you don't win, then all of a sudden we start to pick apart your answers at a press conference here. Has the quirkiness, the nerdiness of Mike McDaniel worn off in South Florida?
Yeah, that part is obvious, but the glee with which the quirkiness is being mocked by the Rex Ryans of the world, who seem to be delighting in calling him nerd boy and McGenius because he had some of that Brandon Staley stuff where, oh, you think you're smarter than everyone else, do you? He had reason to, right? For a minute. Mm-hmm. He had reason to believe that when they had the best offense in the league, and Raheem Mostert had 18 touchdowns at the running back position because it didn't seem to matter whether his offensive line was any good or not. They had offense. He took a quarterback that all of us wondered about and had that quarterback leading what was the best offense in the league. But there's something else happening with McDaniel, right? Because we don't really want our coaches to be interesting. They're better off being public faces and voices for a team. Jim Harbaugh is awfully quirky, Dan. Like, I like him, but fans kind of would prefer that their coach just sort of be presidential, be somebody who connotes leadership and doesn't do very much with interesting sound bites. Like in the history of sports, when you think of the coaches who are real personalities, whatever, Steve Spurrier, Mike Leach, there aren't very many that you think of, Jerry Glanville. There just aren't very many that are wild personalities. They Andy Reid, Bill Belichick, that tends to be what you get.
Fans in South Florida, would they rather have the U be great or the Dolphins to be great?
Ooh, that's a good question, because I'm going to say the Dolphins, because it's the, 50 years of Dolphin football includes a time, and I don't think your audience has any recollection of this. It includes a time where the Dolphins were the winningest franchise in all of sports, not just in football. They won by percentage more often than everyone else. And now they've got the longest drought in the sport, a sport that includes, the Bills for a while went 17 seasons without getting to the playoffs. The Raiders haven't done anything in the playoffs in a long time, but the longest drought belongs to the Miami Dolphins. And this began as a football town because of the Miami Dolphins. We still have an expressway here named after Don Shula because of what the Dolphins did a long time ago. And the Miami Hurricanes have had some recent success, this century. The last playoff game the Dolphins won, Dan, Lamar Smith scored a touchdown against the Colts. It was not on television locally. There was a Dolphin playoff game that was so long ago that you could not see it locally in Miami.
Can you think of another franchise where when you go to the game, you see this jersey, and it's a jersey that is from a player who played decades ago in Dan Marino? Like, of all the different, now you might see that with the Jets, maybe, or the Bears with Walter Payton, but when you're thinking about the Dolphins, do you see other jerseys of anybody besides Dan Marino in the building?
There are a good amount of Tua supporters. It is hard to support some of the things Tyreek Hill is, even if you're excited by him on the field. But this has been a fan base that is unusually starved for excellence because it's become a regional team, Dan. It's not a national team. And one of the reasons that we're talking about them now is because for about a 16-game span or maybe a 20-game span, they had an offense that was interesting, that could make big plays. And so for one brief moment there, this team had expectations that had people talking about it nationally. And what I've been surprised by the first 3 weeks of this season, you tell me if I have this wrong, because there are plenty of bad teams in that league, the Jets, the Saints, Carolina, but national laughingstock from coast to coast over the first 3 weeks of the season, that's been because they've got three very polarizing things as the face of their national identity: McDaniel, Tua, and Tyreek Hill. And the weirdest thing about that, Dan, is I think Tua is the most polarizing of the three. Think about that for a second. And it's just because we haven't been able to accurately measure, what is this guy? Like, is he a franchise quarterback or is he not a franchise quarterback? That discussion made the conversation around Tua more polarizing than the one around McDaniel, who can give off the quirkiness you speak of, and Tyreek Hill, who does some pretty awful things as being a menace to women and children.